1960, those who had started speaking about Africa and how to make Africa great were being eliminated one by one. Africans were given the crown, but the jewels were retained. Africa, for which once we had regained our independence, they created for us the Commonwealth of Independent States. And that Commonwealth is a Commonwealth of independent and equal states, they tell us. But the Queen is the head until the second coming of Christ. That Commonwealth which the United States of America, which was a former colony of the United Kingdom, cannot get into and is not a member of because she's too powerful to be superintended by a former colonizer. That is the Africa that we are grappling with. There is also another Africa, an Africa where Belgium, little Belgium, controls the Democratic Republic of Congo, controls Rwanda and Burundi. That is the Africa that we are talking about. Can she be great? Can she be made to work? Oh, the post-colonial African state was designed to fail. This is a question that sometimes we are too afraid to ask. There is also another Africa which, and recently as 1980, when I was a high school student, had not even regained our independence, Zimbabwe, called Rhodesia at that time. And then there is another Africa. Another Africa which in 1994, when I had graduated and was teaching and working, is when the Europeans recognized that they are equals in apartheid South Africa. Otherwise, in 1948, the Europeans in that country, the Boers and the British, took the view that Africans were children of a lesser God, that we were only fit to be hewers of wood and drawers of water. That is how they held until 1994. But as I speak today now, 80% of the land in South Africa is still in the hands of the whites. And they want to be compensated. They took it for free, but they want to be compensated. They had no passports and visas when they came, but they want to be compensated. They are saying the same thing in Zimbabwe. They want to be compensated. They want to be compensated in Namibia. They want to be compensated. That is the Africa that we are gathered here today to talk about. That Africa is a troubled Africa. Is an Africa which, if you permit me, I want to tell you, you paint, and some of these things are homegrown, some of them are engineered from outside, because poverty is a multi-billion-dollar industry. You know, sometimes when I listen to Kwame Nkrumah or read some of his works, I say to myself, his other human failings notwithstanding, he had the foresight of a Jewish prophet. Because as early as 1961 in Casablanca, Morocco, he told the leaders of the time that if Africa was to work, Africa had to unite. But fellow Africans and friends of goodwill, even as early as that time, Europe was beginning to divide Africa. They had their own group. They had sponsored Cote d'Ivoire's Félix Houphouët-Boigny to argue against the Osagie for Kwame Nkrumah. But Nkrumah did not stop there. He had other other compatriots who thought like he did. Patrice Emery Lumumba did not go to anybody's university, but he was clear that Africa must write her own story. Julius Kambarage Nyerere, so that when Africa met on the 24th and 25th days of May 1963 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, the message was one and clear that if Africa was to work, Africa had to work as one unit. Kwame reminded the audience, let us unite today. Let us come out of Addis Ababa with one country. Let us come out of Addis Ababa with one army. Let us come out of Addis Ababa with one currency. Let us come out of Addis Ababa with a common foreign policy. Because if we don't, we will each get used to our little sovereignties. Central African Republic will become used to the little sovereignty. Rwanda, Swaziland, Burundi, and all the other countries, and it will become difficult to unite us. But who listened to Kwame on that day? While he wanted the United States of Africa, we ended up with the Organization of African Unity, a loose alliance of heads of states. But you and me know that at that time the neo-colonial project had started working. I'm saying this because you are asking me to talk about how we can make Africa work. Before we talk about how to make her work, we must understand how she is. This is a diagnostic process. We are trying to understand the maladies that afflict her, because we must understand the etiology of these maladies in order to prescribe the right medication. So that the neo-colonial project was one that was meant to ensure that we appear to be independent. As somebody once said it in a most eloquent way, Africans were given the crown, but the jewels were retained. So in 1960, those who had started speaking about Africa and how to make Africa great were being eliminated one by one. In Congo, in 1961, barely 9 months after Congo had regained her independence, Patrice Emery Lumumba was dead. In Togo, barely 1 year after independence, Sylvanus Olympia was dead. And if they were not dead, they were removed. Here in Ghana, the Osagie for Kwame Nkrumah was removed. In Nigeria, Nnamdi Azikiwe was removed with Tafawa Balewa and the Sultan of Sokoto, Sir Ahmadu Bello. In Mali, Modibo Keita was gone. And if you go to all the countries, Amadou Ahidjo was gone. David Dacko was gone. Coup d'etats. That is the Africa that you are asking me to say, how will it work? It was never at ease. Destabilization after destabilization. That is the Africa. But the beauty of it that amidst all these Africans, whether they are in the political class, or in the academy, or in different sectors, even when they are engaged in activities that appear to undermine Africa, they have always been conscious of the fact that this continent needs to move in some useful direction. I remember as early as 1980 in Lagos, Nigeria. The Africans came together under the Lagos Plan of Action, and they said we must make Africa work. The Lagos Plan of Action was meant to be an avenue of channeling African resources for Africa's benefit. Did the Lagos Plan of Action work as well as it was intended to? Not as well as it was intended to. So there have been many initiatives designed to make sure that Africa works. Some of them are homegrown, some of them are engineered from outside. Once again, begging the question, why is it always that people are prescribing for Africa what she needs to do? How many of you here will forget the Lomé Convention of 1975, signed in the neighborhood here in Lomé, Togo, African, Caribbean, and Pacific, telling us how we should cooperate with Europe as a way of immunizing ourselves from poverty and improving our lot? Is it in the best interest of Europe that we should do well? I doubt.
There you have it, guys. So we know that our African leaders usually are trying their best to comprehend all of the problems, and the circumstances with which Africa has found itself today. And many of these problems can be really complicated. And the best we can actually do is to try to support them, encourage them. And, for those who probably might be going along with the agents of imperialism and colonialism, to help them, through our comments here and, our thoughts, come to their senses and try to acknowledge the fact that Africa should be built for Africans, and that Africans should have the right to decide their own destinies. And so that's why these speeches, I try to capture these speeches and post them here on Kwazemi. So the least we can do is to share our thoughts in the comments. So whatever you think, whatever thoughts you have about this speech, share your thoughts in the comments.
Thank you for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please share and like and subscribe, because that's the way you support Kwazemi as a channel, an Afrocentric channel, where we try to understand deeper issues in African history and hopefully develop a collective intelligence on how we wish to build the Africa we want to see as people of Africa. See you in the next one.